Are you ready to explore how people coordinate, to build and empower your community, to take action and solve problems, to coordinate without any central authority? What? Bringing in the OGs of the pre-crypto decentralized coordination space, together with the pioneers of the cutting-edge technologies, to fuse their ancient knowledge with the latest tools in order to fight coordination failures, slay Moloch, and continue the endless search for the holy grails of decentralized coordination. Welcome to the front lines of coordination. Fuck. My brain is already melting. I hope you survive. Welcome, Stefen.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. How about with yourself?
I'm good, just as per usual, doing what I can in the space.
Where are you at these days? Have you been to Barcelona? You back home?
Yeah, I literally ended up doing the Austin to New York to Barcelona conference circuit, basically. Did not go to Paris. I'm not in Paris. Needed a break. Also doing some stuff back home right now, so just timing was interesting. But I'm back home in the Bahamas now, here for a bit, most likely until I'm gone, I think.
Cool. Yeah, there's just so much going on, and I see like on Twitter, like some people are like on every conference, like, okay, 1 week it's in the US, then it's in Europe, then it's in US, and then it's in Europe. Like, how do these people do this? Like,
Honestly, I don't know. After Barcelona, I was completely wiped out. Like, no, I can't do anything else.
yeah, I don't think I've ever been in like 2 in a row. Like, I have to get home at least for a few weeks and before going onwards.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll see how long this kind of thing lasts. I don't know if it's going to be back and forth each year like it is now. Maybe next year it'll slow down a little bit, but who knows? There might be just more people doing 100 different things.
Yeah, so far it's only been more and more conferences. Now we'll see the bear market. Maybe there's less. I actually hope there's less. But it's okay, it's okay. Like, during COVID, there was none. And we were crying, oh, there's nothing happening, fucking COVID. And now we're like, oh, it's too much happening.
We went from one extreme to the next because that's what we do.
Yeah. I don't have any specific like questions and things that I want to get into you, like just like such a vibes man. I thought like I just had to get you on here and talk to you, but without any specific preparations.
We'll just make it fun.
Yeah. I mean, usually that's how I usually do it. Like even with people that I have some like specific things, I still don't prepare questions. I like to keep it like conversational.
Emergent.
Yeah. So what are you doing back home? Is that related to something like in your private life or to the Caribbean Alliance? Crypto Caribbean, is that how it's called?
Yeah. So I mean, home is home, but also actually end of this month, actually next week. So for background, people know me from DAOs, but I also run the Caribbean Blockchain Alliance, which is basically a nonprofit focused on blockchain adoption in the region, mostly through education. So we've done a lot of different education kind of small and large programs over the years, mostly like through webinars, workshops, maybe a few courses here or there, that kind of thing. But always like on the ground, always like interacting with people. So what we're doing now is basically a intro to Web3 workshop series that'll last about 2 weeks, closer to like a week and a half. But each day is just like a different section of Web3. So there's going to be a small developer track. There's going to be obviously a DeFi track, NFT track. We're going to basically just showing people all the various aspects that they can get into, but it's also going to be very practical, meaning that they're going to actually be using these systems, right? So for example, with DeFi, they're going to like actually use Uniswap, actually use Aave, for example, and like NFTs are going to like mint an NFT. So it's not most of actually what we've done in the past, especially when they weren't developer focused, is kind of just like, hey, here's crypto, hey, here's what the blockchain is. But this is going to be like very practical, very hands-on at the end of the day. So I'm excited about that. And we have, a few people who are like doing these lectures. For example, we have Diana Sinclair doing the NFT track, who's like one of the more known NFT artists. We have Jim from Aave, OX Jim, doing the DeFi track. So it's like there's also this factor of giving people access to, people in the space that they wouldn't have access to otherwise. So yeah, just really looking forward to it. And I think it's going to be really cool. And the idea after this is that we're going to kind of put people in groups based on the track or maybe by the country and continue to provide them learnings and then, eventually turn those groups into mini DAOs and get them to start building together and creating things together. And that's going to like drive everything that happens in the future. But yeah, we'll see how that goes.
All right, very cool. And this is the first time you're doing that there?
In this format, yeah, we've definitely done like a few years back, for example, we did a workshop and a hackathon strictly like specifically for devs in the Bahamas. And then over time, we've done like, different webinars, different workshops. Small scale is probably a somewhat larger scale in comparison, but it's also region wide, which means anyone in the Caribbean can be a part of it, can join it. So I think it'll be interesting to see like which countries are represented, who does what, like who decides to go to DeFi route, who decides to go to NFT route, or who just does all of them.
Yeah, I love that it's so practical and this idea of like continuing it by launching multiple DAOs out of it.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that kind of at least for the Caribbean is pretty unprecedented. Not only the type of learning, but also the style of what we're doing afterwards. Because I definitely see DAOs becoming the main point of access for the Caribbean. Because in a lot of places, for pretty much the most part, exchanges are still pretty difficult to get access to in terms of like on ramps and off ramps. So if you have people working in DAOs, for example, where they may be, for example, working for stablecoins or working for ETH or working for a native token, that will probably end up being the way that people get crypto for the first time and actually can engage with, DeFi or whatever afterwards now that they're working either fully or partly for crypto. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that changes things over time and just gets people more into the ecosystem where they just couldn't do it before.
And how fucked is the off-ramp? Like, how are you trying to solve that, or are people just going to be keeping it in the crypto, what they earn in DAOs? What's the idea there?
Yeah, I mean, the on-ramp, off-ramp thing is something I've been trying to, work towards fixing for a long time. It's very difficult just because there's so many different factors that go into it, including like central bank rules, laws in general, banking regulations, both within the region and outside the region. So there's so many different moving parts that it's just really hard to fix. But I know this is a big goal, but if we end up having, let's say, a lot of people working in DAOs or a lot of people, working, like earning crypto for work, then my hope is that we'll start getting more and more people, like people on the ground, like merchants and whatnot, that actually engage in crypto too, or maybe accept it for goods. And that's something that, people have been wanting to make happen for a long time. For the most part, it hasn't. But I think as more people create DAOs or join DAOs as their main or even secondary like job or work platform in any kind of sense, then that may end up bringing more adoption like on the ground, basically. So we'll see if it happens. But I do think this is probably the best bet rather than trying to force it like any other kind of way.
Yeah, it's more grassroots and more people caring. Get people tokens, and then they start caring about being able to off ramp, and then you get actual off ramp.
Yeah, grassroots has to be key because, I mean, let's be real, the space right now is still largely monolithic in a lot of ways, and getting these grassroots efforts is how everyone can come in. So yeah, just trying to make that happen as much as humanly possible. But it's going to take a while. It's a long effort, but it's definitely worth doing.
It's such a critical piece, and I feel like a lot of us are taking it for granted these days. Like in Croatia, you can just cash out straight to the bank, or you can get a Binance card or something and start spending. But then, like just across the border in Bosnia, it's like so much harder. I don't know what it's like these days, but like last year I was talking to a friend, and he was telling me like it was pretty much impossible up until a few months earlier. Like, people would have to go to Croatia to like cash out and get back to Bosnia. And it's like the same continent, like
Yeah. Between Croatia and Bosnia, it's like night and day, depending on like comparing access. But why is that? Is that like the laws or?
yeah, just different. It's different country, different law. We are also part of the European Union, so like we have a lot of the European Union's laws.
Ah, that's right.
Our government is corrupt, and theirs is like so corrupt. It's hard to call it government instead of mafia. So that's definitely a part of the problem.
I feel that.
And yeah, that's still in Europe. Like I can't imagine
Yeah.
when it's like you're in the islands in the middle of the fucking ocean. You can't just go to a bordering country and sell crypto and come back. You have to like fly somewhere.
No, that's the thing, right? It's like crypto is so important for the Caribbean in the sense of, you know, technically it already solves so many problems and will, as things open up, it will solve a lot of problems. But we have to get to the point where we can access it properly so we can solve the problems. So it's like a very strange almost kind of chicken and egg kind of thing.
And how did you get in? Did you then earn your first crypto, or did you buy it from someplace else?
So it's funny, I got in not really on the crypto side at all. It was more of like, I was really interested and really focused on the blockchain architecture side because I was really into fintech like a number of years back when like fintech was really popping off. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. This is like, you know, a new kind of paradigm away from the traditional financial system. It's all these like very modern, very kind of millennial styles of interacting with finance. But then I realized very quickly that a lot of the things that fintech was supposed to be, it actually wasn't. Like it was still completely connected to the traditional financial system, and for the most part, it just didn't work in like many parts of the global south. It didn't work in like for example, like things like Cash App, Stripe, all those kind of things. They just didn't work in the Caribbean. So I realized, okay, this thing that I thought was really cool actually doesn't help me at all. And then because I mean, I'd heard about like Bitcoin and stuff before. I didn't really pay too much attention to it, even though I was still kind of like looking at it in the background. But it was when people started talking more about like blockchain as a technology or as an architecture. That's when I really started paying attention. When I learned about that, I was like, oh, this kind of already solves all the problems that I was looking for. You know, like it's you know, unattached to the traditional financial system, and it's global by default, which means it could work anywhere. So after I realized that, I paid more attention to it, and then about a year later, so this is like 2015 where I really dove into it, and then like end of 2016, a few people who I'd connected to who were also just like interested in blockchain in the Caribbean, including this company called Bit, which is like the first Bitcoin and blockchain related company in the Caribbean at all. So we ended up starting Caribbean Blockchain Alliance, and that was like just there's a tiny community, maybe like 5-6 people who were passionate about it. And over time that grew to about, I think it's like around like 200 people now. And then we created these mandates that were focused on like education, also public policy, like talking to governments and regulators and stuff like that. And just working on all these different things, trying to bridge adoption, which obviously, you know, we knew from the beginning it was going to be a very long and difficult path, but we're still pushing.
Good. What's what was the like some of the biggest challenges maybe?
Yeah, so the biggest one by far is definitely the on-ramp, off-ramp thing. Outside of that, it's just it's interesting because obviously the Caribbean is made up of a bunch of different countries, which means that, you know, each government, each central bank, each regulatory agency sees things differently and moves differently. So if you look at, say, Bahamas, Barbados, and Bermuda, those three have like really pushed forward to embrace the space, especially the Bahamas. Like, you know, they were the first to have a CBDC, central bank digital currency. They also had all three of those also had very good laws from the Securities Commission about like crypto businesses and stuff like that. And the Bahamas like really pushed forward making that happen as well, which is why FTX ended up coming to the Bahamas. And between both of those things, it's just been like more crypto companies interested in coming down, more people trying to figure out like how things work. So we're definitely seeing progress. I think the biggest problem is that a lot of the other countries just haven't done that yet. So it's just kind of like trying to figure out. So like what I'd really love to see is just like a regional regulatory framework for crypto. But every country just wants to do its own thing. So there's this pretty much an imbalance where you have like some countries like, yeah, let's embrace crypto. Other countries like, yeah, we want nothing to do with it and we won't let you mess with it, that kind of thing. So I think those are definitely the main issues.
But in the Bahamas, then the problem is fixed, or is like you get
Yes and no. It's so like in terms of the Securities Commission, for example, they've definitely done a good job and they've come a long way in terms of like figuring out how to just deal with crypto and deal with people who are using crypto and all that kind of stuff. But the central bank still has, how do I put this, very old rules and rules that aren't helpful, which makes that, and that's actually part of the on-ramp issue in terms of like how crypto is seen, like whether it's seen as like a foreign currency or how people are able to buy or not necessarily trade. Because if you're trading peer-to-peer crypto, you have no issues. But it's more so the purchasing of it. Also, again, the banking regulations separate to that are also still an issue. So it's like, in some ways it's fixed, but in some ways we still have a lot of problems, and it's still going to take a little while to get there. Which is why I definitely think like the earning of crypto through DAOs is still absolutely the best way. And then at the same time, do you want people to buy crypto or do you want them to earn it? I definitely prefer them to earn it, because if you're buying it, that has to be money that people don't necessarily have. So earning is always better.
I agree. But yeah, so like you got into crypto through being interested in fintech. Then I guess you were interested in DeFi. But these days you seem more interested in DAOs. Is that true, or does it just seem that way?
No, is definitely true. I mean, that's been a whole journey for me. So I mean, it was actually 2020. I think it was like June or July. I quit my job, like my normie job, to dive into crypto full time. Still wasn't sure. I mean, outside of CBA, I obviously wanted to expand that, but outside of that, I didn't know what else I wanted to like focus on. But DeFi Summer happened to be happening at the time, so I kind of played around with that and just saw what was going on. Then shortly after, a good friend of mine who was like a really early NFT collector, he just told me to get involved in NFTs. So I started paying attention to that, and I had a lot of fun, like interacted with a lot of artists, did a lot of work, like onboarding artists and supporting artists and stuff like that. A few of us started like Her Story DAO, which was basically a small collector DAO. I was the only non-artist in it. It was like mostly Black women artists who wanted to collect other art from either their friends or people they wanted to support. So that was cool. That was my first DAO. I was already like interested in it and interested in the toolings and stuff like that. So that was a good experience. And also like I was, before that, because my background's in economics, especially labor economics, like I was really interested in cooperatives, and I actually had written a paper on it for my thesis. So when I really started paying more attention to DAOs, I was like, wait, this is actually very similar, and this is really cool. So I definitely shifted more towards that. So at that time, which is like maybe, let's say early 2021, I was definitely kind of mixed between just like NFTs in general and also like exploring more about DAOs. And then over time, I just got more and more into DAOs, and like MCon, I think, was like the big shift for me, where I was like, yeah, I'm going to focus fully on DAOs. So yeah, and then it was, let's say, September or October 2021, like last year, I joined the DAOist and PrimeDAO at the same time. So it's kind of working with both. Then I ended up focusing a little more on the DAOist. So that's what I was doing for between, end of 2021 and early 2022. And then I recently left to join Govrn full time, basically, and that's where I'm at now. It's been about a month.
What were you doing there at the DAOist or PrimeDAO?
PrimeDAO is mostly comms and communication, but also a little bit of research, because obviously with PrimeDAO, the focus is on DAO-to-DAO collaboration. So I also did a little bit of research on just like what was happening with DAO-to-DAOs, with like the DAO-to-DAO landscape at the time, but it was mostly communications. And then the DAOs is pretty similar. For a long time, I was also like running comms. Also, later on, was doing some, just in general, some DAO ops as well. But yeah, it was a ride, and the DAOist event in Amsterdam, the global governance gathering, was incredible, and just had a really good time helping out with it, hosting part of it. Like, it was a really good experience and just an amazing event.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was a lot of fun.
But yeah, the reason I'm asking is because it's like sometimes it's hard to explain to people what you do in DAOs. There's many different parts, and like, so on the other hand, you have newcomers who are like, "Oh, I'm not a developer, so there's nothing for me to do in crypto." And it's like, I know there's so much to do, but I can't explain it. Like, I don't even know how to explain what I'm doing. What are all these different roles that can be filled?
That's the thing. Yeah, I think honestly, with the NFT, boom, for lack of a better word, like what that did is it introduced a lot of people who weren't devs or didn't think they could be in crypto if they weren't a dev. It kind of introduced them to the ecosystem, and they realized, oh, there's this whole art thing. I'm an artist. I'm a musician. Like, I can do this. And then, they learn more, they explore more, and realize there's all this other stuff happening, which is why I think, like, the NFT boom kind of directly led into the DAO boom in terms of like a lot of people like being interested in DAOs or wanting to start DAOs, because there was just this influx of people who weren't necessarily crypto native, but wanting to find out, wanting to discover. So all these things kind of meshed together, which is interesting that like it literally went from DeFi summer to like the interest in NFTs between, end of 2020, early 20 to early 2021 was when that kind of boom started. And then the summer was just filled with everyone talking about DAOs. So it's kind of wild how this happens. But yeah, I think the interest there, and whether it's like, people looking for bounties or people like starting DAOs or people just kind of pushing forward to see what they can do. There's so much opportunity. Even now in this bear market, there's still so many DAOs just need people, and people from everywhere. And that's the beauty of this thing being the future of work, right? Like, you could literally have any kind of background and find something to do in DAOs.
Right. Just come in and start being useful, taking notes at the calls and shit like that, instead of coming to the Discord and be like, "Hey, I want to help. Tell me what to do."
Right. It's no, I mean, that's the cool part, and that's what I really liked. So Aaron from Govrn did a talk at ETH Barcelona, which is mostly focused on radical participation and like bottom up participation, where it's like you join a DAO, you see something that needs to be done, you jump up and do it. You don't necessarily have to wait for permission or ask what to do. You kind of just like explore for yourself and then see what happens. And then that's kind of where Govrn comes in, where you're basically recording your contributions, so there's always a record, and so that other people, especially like maybe the DAO operators or coordinators or whatever, can actually see what's being done. Because I think a lot of DAOs too, especially the medium to larger size ones, people have no idea what's actually happening in the DAO or like what work is being done. They know that a few people are always doing a few things, but outside of that, there's like a lot of work that goes unnoticed, basically. So it's like this idea of contribution management, I think, is going to be really important and really good for DAOs as a whole.
Yeah, and I mean, even just like reporting problems is just super valuable, and even that is like super easy, super valuable, and still people don't do it. Like, sometimes I discover some like broken link that's probably like, oh shit, this shit has been broken for like 6 months and nobody reported like anything, something like that. I'm like, why?
Yeah. And also, like, what if you notice the link was broken, no one else did, and then you fix it, and you don't like make record of that. So it's like you're not making record of the problem, and you're not making record of the solution. So everyone just like acting like nothing's happened because to them nothing's happened.
Right. Yeah. In our case, well, not on Notion. Like, it depends on where you fix it. Like, if you fix it through GitHub, then source code knows and automatically rewards you. But if you fix a broken link in Notion, then yeah, nobody knows. You need to report it. But yeah, that was a whole learning curve for me from like studying metagame and like expecting people to be a lot more autonomous. I thought, oh yeah, I'm gonna start a DAO and people will come and pick things up and do things, and then like you realize like most people coming in will not even say anything, and then like most of those who say something will ask how they can help and then disappear and shit like that.
Yeah, it's really hard because like people kind of do need to be. People first need to understand what being autonomous means, and then they can actually do it. But like a lot of people come in and just like aren't, because I mean it's a completely different type of way to work. So a lot of people aren't used to it, or maybe even aren't ready for it. So it's like it's a mentality shift, really. So that makes it a lot hard. But actually, I definitely want to hear more about like your entry. I know you're the host, but but like how you got in, like start a metagame and everything.
It's definitely not just a technological barrier and problem, but just like, yeah, understanding how these things operate and how it's like working a DAO completely different than having a job. For me, it was always actually about DAOs. Like, originally, I was just into researching like these sort of alternative economic systems, starting from way back from like the Venus project, resource-based economy, and then I was researching like eco villages, self-sustainable villages, that sort of thing. And then when I found Ethereum, like everything clicked. I was like, oh shit, like, this is the technological like software layer for establishing these sort of new kind of socioeconomic systems. So like my brain was blown. That was like 2016, and then I was just joining a few projects meantime, and then eventually joined the Meta Cartel, where I realized, okay, this is a DAO, but it's a voting front end and a Telegram chat. Like, where is the organization part? Like, I don't know who are these people, what's going on, like, what sort of projects are happening, what can people do to help, and all that sort of things. So Metagame really started as it was called the Meta Cartel Black Paper, and I wanted to fix the onboarding and navigation inside of it to like just add some structure, different roles, and different paths that people can take to start contributing, things like that. And then as this whole concept developed like into this idea of a platform, and then I thought like if we're going to be building this whole platform, then it doesn't make sense to build it just for this one DAO, but it should be like a general platform where other DAOs can plug in. And so this kind of sort of use this opportunity to like start it, metagame, like, okay, I'm going to try to solve this onboarding navigation problem in the DAO space, but really long term thinking like using this as the opportunity to start something that I never would have had the courage to start without this community or without having a decent starting niche, because you know like you need to like, build this whole alternative socioeconomic system, and you can just be like, okay, do it. Takes years and takes a place to start.
Yeah, exactly. It's, man, that's actually a really cool entry, and it's like, yeah, you're absolutely right. This is something you have to know is going to take years. It's so funny because like if you look at traders, a lot of it is just very short term, like day in day out kind of thing. But a lot of what we're trying to do is years and years and probably decades worth of work and planning and everything. But that's we definitely got to jam on like alternative economic system at some point, because that's something I'm was always really passionate about too, like whether it's cooperatives or like even like anarchist communities and stuff like that.
Always down, always down.
That's really dope though.
I mean, right now it's just one DAO trying to build the thing, but really long term want it to be a network of different DAOs, different cooperatives, anarchist communities, however we want to call them, or they don't even have to like. They're not all gonna be the same, but definitely like in phase 2, I want us to fade into being just one of many organizations that are building it, rather than just being the organization. You can't build a new world as a single organization.
Yeah, 1,000%. No, you're absolutely right. And I think that's the thing too. Where like a lot of people still think, it has to be one DAO to do this, or you don't want anyone else coming in. But it's like the world is vast, and we still have billions of people to bring into the space. So there's no way it can only be one organization. It has to be many, coming together. And I think that the beauty of DAOs is that they can be networked and they can be brought together, through many different ways. And just having this kind of fluid connection between different organizations where you can go back and forth, where you can like collaborate with each other or help each other out. That's going to be really key. And I think that's where we're going to see a lot of beauty coming from this space. It makes me excited.
Definitely. It's just it's early for that, and it's hard. I mean, like just coordinating inside a single DAO is hard enough, and then you have like this cross-DAO collaboration, and just hard to get it going and to sustain it, and just like tracking work in this. It's hard to get. In general, just hard communicating across DAOs, incentivizing people across DAO, tracking work across DAOs. That's all, like kind of unexplored territory. We're still in the stage of, hey, a DAO can make a proposal to another DAO. That's almost as far as it goes.
Right, exactly. A lot of primitives we still need to build, but we're building them, and I think it's really cool to watch what's happening right now, because a lot of this is going to last a very long time, and it's going to create whole new systems and ecosystems. And I think like focusing on ecosystems is the best way to do something.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the Web3 way of doing. Like when I see some like Web3 Silicon Valley startup, is like, oh, we're building a all-in-one platform for DAOs, like all-in-one platform for this thing or that thing. Like, please don't. Please.
Oh man, please don't. God, I make fun of those all the time. It's like that's not what this is about. It's not how this works.
You're missing the whole point of interoperability.
Exactly.
Guys, missing the point.
They'll learn eventually.
Yeah, I hope so.
You're right. I hope so. We'll see.
Going back to the transition from working at PrimeDAO and the DAOist into Govrn. What was that like? And what are you focusing on inside Govrn?
Sure. Transition was pretty easy. So interestingly, like I said, when I started, it was kind of like 50-50 the DAOist and PrimeDAO. That basically ended up being like 100% the DAOist. So I was focusing on that. And then kind of ended up, because Aaron and I, had been talking about Govrn quite a bit, like for a while. Me mostly from the outside, obviously. But we had a lot of good conversations about like what they're building, strategy and things like that. So then when he eventually asked me to join, it just really made sense. So I ended up doing that. So I'm actually growth lead for Govrn currently. And that's, mostly, I mean, it's kind of everything, right? It's like getting users, talking to DAOs. We interestingly have kind of a focus both on DAOs that use Govrn, but also individual contributors that use Govrn. And they don't necessarily have to be connected. Like you can be a contributor using Govrn, even if the DAO isn't using Govrn, because it's really about autonomy and ownership of your own work first. And then if you're a contributor using Govrn, and then later on, the DAO starts using Govrn, like for, in general, that makes it even better. But at the same time, use an individual can definitely do it without this necessary connection. So it's like we both talk to DAOs in terms of like coordinators in general, but also just contributors in general. Also definitely focusing on like partnerships, integrations, all that fun stuff. And then just, regular media and communication stuff. It's a lot of different grounds to cover, but it's been pretty fun so far.
Tell me more about the. It's very fascinating. Like that people can use Govrn in an organization that doesn't use Govrn. How does that work?
So, I mean, it's funny too. So we actually just launched V1 of the product. It's still in closed beta. So right now, the DAOs that are, for example, we're already using V0 have access to V1, and we're opening it up more over the next month, basically. But V0 was basically just a Discord bot. So you kind of record your contributions through the Discord bot, and it would save them, et cetera, et cetera. But now we have a full platform. But if you are, like, let's say you're just, Peth as an individual contributor, like you want to do contribution management, you want to record your contributions, whether or not you want to save them, in perpetuity, you can mint your contributions on chain if you want. If you don't want to, you don't have to. But I mean, obviously that provides its own kind of value. So they get minted as NFTs. We'll probably include more options like verifiable credentials and stuff like that later on. But you can do that. Like, let's say you contribute to 5 different DAOs. You're recording your own contributions. Let's say one of those DAOs is using Govrn. So you can actually get the records sent to that DAO. And let's say another DAO isn't using Govrn, but is interested. They could actually see that record and then say, wait a minute, this is actually really cool. We're happy that you were recording this. And we actually think that the work you did for this other DAO is actually very interesting and actually could help us quite a bit. So we're actually going to, 1, pay you for that work that you did for that other DAO. And then 2, create a collaboration or a partnership with these 2 DAOs. And all that would have come from your individual work. So I think there's this really cool idea and still mostly unexplored idea of building DAO-to-DAO collaborations from contributor work rather than just a proposal, for example. But that's something I think we're going to see a lot of.
It's pretty cool. And when did you launch the V2?
V1 was it was 2 weeks ago. So we're still testing it out with a few organizations, a few DAOs, and then we're going to open it up. And I'm really excited for that because I know there's a lot of people who want to use it and see the value of it. And it's the platform's really simple to use, but it's also something that's, just so necessary, and we see it all the time. I think the cool thing is, especially when DAOs are using Govrn, that you can also have attestations for your work. So let's say, you say you did this, you say you made this contribution, someone else, another contributor, for example, can actually verify it or attest to it on the platform and say, yes, I attest that Peth has done this. And that just makes kind of the whole process easier because, at some point, someone will lie and say they did something that they didn't do. So being able to have attestations just kind of makes the whole process easier. Because at the end of the day, I mean, this is what blockchains and crypto is about at the end of the day. It's being resilient, being able to verify regardless of what the situation is. So that just kind of helps with that whole thing.
Yeah, makes it a lot more powerful. Yeah, I didn't even know there's a whole platform. He had Aaron on the podcast, I think 6 months ago, and then we're still just a Discord bot.
Yeah, things were very different 6 months ago.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, the last month has just been really active, a lot going on, but it's really cool to see, especially now that it's out there. It's this is going to be great.
How many people are working on it?
It's about 5 full time, and then about another 5 that are contributing. So we'll probably end up bringing in a few other full time people fairly soon in the next few months. But yeah, in total it's about 10.
Cool. And there was a stealth fundraise, or how is that happening?
Yeah, there was a pre-seed. I think it was between December and January, so it was before I came in. But there'll be another raise probably closer to the end of the year.
It's such a stealth project. I know Aaron has been working on it for years, and it's been flying under the radar. But yeah, I fucking love Aaron. This sounds great.
No, he's the best. It's been really great working with him.
I can imagine. Is there anything that you want us to cover?
I feel like we covered so much. Let's see. Okay, what do you see as what is the next 2 years? Like, let's say this bear market lasts another 2 years. What do you see happening overall in the space? Like anything new, or kind of just people hunkering down to build, or something else just jumps out of nowhere?
I feel DAOs further developing a lot. Like after so many years, we've been saying that this is the year of the DAOs, the year of the DAOs, this is the year of the DAOs, like since 2018 or some shit. And I feel like this year it actually finally is, but it's still super early. And I think, yeah, like over the next 2 years, like this whole DAO tooling will go leaps ahead, and hopefully inter-DAO collaboration as well, and inter-DAO tooling will be way further. I don't know what else could pop up. Like we had the whole DeFi wave, the NFTs wave, and now there's the DAOs, and like DAOs are bringing together DeFi and NFTs, and like anything that's going to build in crypto is probably going to include DAOs, be built by DAOs. Even if DAOs continue trending towards just being like internet native C corps, which I hope not. But even if that happens, it's just going to be DAOs all the way.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you think?
And yeah, it's like all these DAOs are going to be all of those things put together. But yeah, you're right. I think like the connections with DeFi and NFTs are going to grow. And I think too, especially in the bull market, like people were just like joining DAOs, let's raise so much money, let's do this, let's do that, without really planning things out or without like thinking about how this affects, different things. I definitely think now it's going to be a lot more thoughtful, a lot more like well thought out in terms of what DAOs do, how DAOs like operate. I think we're gonna, especially like the conversations happening right now about governance, like Maker, for example. I think we're gonna have a really good kind of multiple conversations, or just focus on how to make governance better and how to do it in ways that, and I mean just across the board, right? Gonna a lot of good conversations about just ways to improve DAO governance as a whole, or just bringing about new kind of paradigms for governance. Like, with Govrn, for example, I think we definitely think a lot about the eventual rise, I guess, of contribution weighted governance instead of token weighted governance, which really can only be possible with, say, like contribution management happening in DAOs more and more. So there's like stuff like that. I think in general, we're going to come with a lot of different ways to operate. And just like you said, like I think a lot of collaboration is going to be built during this time. A lot of like DAO tools are going to integrate with each other, like composability. I really hope, but I do think we're going to just see a lot more composability, like tools working together, DAOs collaborating with each other and stuff like that. Because then it just goes back to the resilience thing.
Yeah, more DAO standards in general, Web3 standards, and things being interoperable. And definitely like looking forward to more like governance primitives and just ways of governing projects, and a lesser portion being like token voting. That's definitely a big one.
It's funny because at first, when I first got into DAOs, I thought token governance was so good and so important, because it's like, well, the tokens allow things to be liquid and allows people to exit whenever they want to. But then over time, I realized, token weighted governance makes things really, really hard, actually. So we need to find better ways to do it.
Right, yeah. It allows super rich people to just come in and take over the project. That whole problem. Yeah, I was gonna say that we both forgot the refi stuff. I definitely hope the whole region meme will go like at least 10x from here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Collectivo, for example, which is kind of another part, kind of the overarching part of both like the DAOs and PrimeDAO, but is also like a separate project, but it's focused on refi in Curacao, in the Caribbean mainly. And I definitely think we're going to see more projects like that, which are like DAOs focus on specific communities, which I think is going to be really powerful. And then you combine that with refi in general, and like you see a lot of projects focused on like whether it's like carbon credits and carbon markets, or just forestation, things like that, or even just like things like local food security is going to be really powerful. So there's just so much potential there, really, because at the end of the day, it's just like doing all these things in a way that's better organized or more easy to organize.
Right. Yeah. local region DAOs. I really hope that's going to be huge,
Yeah,
a huge team.
I hope so too.
All right, man. This was a lot of fun.
But yeah, I mean, shout out to Collectivo, like really pushing forward and showing the way. But yeah, no, this is great.
Yeah, local people. And yeah, loved this conversation, man.
Honestly, these are like the best. I don't know if you consider like call it a podcast or but these are the best kind where it's kind of just open, fun, casual conversations.
Yeah, I definitely enjoy them. I hope the people listening do too. All right, man. Yeah, thank you for coming on, and see you at MCon.
See you at MCon. I'm excited.
Peace.
Peace.